Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you guys are having a great Monday so far and having a great evening. A lot to discuss tonight. We're going to talk about the chances of severe weather tomorrow, really tomorrow night, and then Wednesday looks to be the main event, if you will. I'm talking about a nasty squall line that could potentially, well, likely will move through portions of Louisiana, Arkansas, maybe even areas of Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and we'll see what happens after that as we get into the next day, which will be Thursday, which will be its own severe weather day. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but the main topic in this video is going to be about Wednesday. Tomorrow, we will really begin to build a breakdown what's going to happen Thursday, as we're just still not in those short range models. But this is really looking like it's going to be a nasty squall line with damaging winds being the primary threat with this setup with embedded tornadoes. There's still some questions and I'm going to discuss in this video. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. It goes a long way and I really appreciate the ongoing support. If you guys got anything I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over them. It gives others an opportunity to do so too. And every time I make these videos in the evening, I wake up, have a little bit of quiet time, and I pray over everything in the comments. I don't like just reading the comments just right off the dot and, and praying when there's distractions all around me. I like to pray over each individual prayer request and actually understand what you're asking for as far as your prayer request. So definitely put it in the comments below. So let's get going here. There's a lot to discuss, but at the same time, it's pretty cut and dry information. So tomorrow, as in Tuesday morning through Wednesday morning, this is the slight risk. Tornado risk in this small risk area, 5% chance of a tornado in 25 miles in any given location. This does include areas like Oklahoma City, really points east all the way down to Wichita Falls, Texas, and then includes Dallas also. And that's really because you're going to have a wind field that really gets ramped up in this area. But as far as the big time severe weather event with this, I don't think it's going to happen. It's been a slight risk for a while, and I think you're going to remain a slight risk tomorrow, as nothing's really increased with this event. Really, for tomorrow night, into overnight, tomorrow night, into Wednesday morning is when this cranks up. So we'll look also for Wednesday. Enhanced risk still up. This is not, escalated, is not increased. Nothing really is telling us that this is going to a moderate threat yet. If it does go to a moderate risk, which I won't be surprised if it does, I really think it'll probably be for a large area of Mississippi, and it'll be for damaging winds, not necessarily tornado driven, but damaging wind driven, if that makes sense. That means out of all the categories of severity of severe weather, damaging winds, I really think will be the biggest threat, but tornadoes are going to be embedded in a squall line. So stick with me. I'm going to talk about you folks in Mississippi and Alabama, Louisiana. I'm going to talk about you in here in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about this squall line that has the potential to really be disruptive. So let's talk about the NAM. Let's talk about tomorrow night. So we're getting forward. We're going to go on and just skip through tomorrow afternoon because there's nothing really going on. There will be some elevated thunderstorms that develops right up here into Nebraska. But, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy up there. Maybe a hell threat. But I don't think there's going to be really any way of any tornadoes up there. The wind field really isn't ramping up enough for these storms up here in Nebraska and eastern Nebraska to be really any type of big time threat. But as we're getting into about 10, 11, midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning, this is the beginning of a line of intense storms that begins to develop. And notice, nothing is real discrete right off the dot. These form into a line of storms, starts to move through central Oklahoma, northern areas of Texas. This continues. Notice what time we're at. If you're trying to figure out what day we're at, this is for technically your Wednesday morning. So this says 2 a.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. So this is 1 a.m. Central Standard Time. So we keep this rolling here. This line continues to hit areas of eastern Oklahoma. It moves through Oklahoma City probably around just after midnight. It really begins to intensify, probably slowly because it's in the overnight hours, but then it'll move through areas like Dallas, Fort Worth, anywhere between 3 to 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, and then it will move into Arkansas, and then we get into basically day 3. So we stop it here, and we go on and switch to the next run. But let's go and look at the HRRR model too. Same kind of deal. There's not much differences here. A line of storms is a little bit more broken up on the HRRR model, but same kind of deal. And I think this is going to be more in the way of damaging winds, but there will be a tornado threat into here. And the dangerous thing about this is this will be more so overnight. You know, there's a portion right here of Texas that got hit hard. I can't think of the city right off the top of my head, well west of Dallas, that got hit hard by a tornado. So nasty weather moving through that area. Oklahoma City, a rocky night. Probably going to get woken up in the middle of the night, and just a line of storms moving through. So let's go on and switch to that big risk day for Wednesday, which will be the most significant risk day of severe weather. Moving forward here, we'll start this about 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 9 a.m. Central Standard Time if you're in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, places like that. We keep this moving here. As we're getting into the afternoon hours, daytime heating begins to destabilize this atmosphere. How much cloud cover will you have in this area? How much will the Cape build northward? How much moist air do you have? I think you'll have plenty of moist air, well, pretty far northward, all the way into the Quad States region. So the moist air will be there, dew points well into the 60s. Right, I don't even feel like I need to show that. Just take my word for it. You'll have a very fast collapsing moist sector due to the fact that everything behind this squall line will become a stable atmosphere. So thunderstorms really won't be an issue, and if they are, they're going to lose the severity level of them. We keep this moving forward here as we're getting into later in the afternoon hours. This line of storms begins to intensify. Now, the big question is, do you have any prefrontal convection that forms in this area? If any convection forms and it's down here in these southern areas, you have enough CAPE, and I'm about to show you that here in a second, so stick with me, enough convective energy, CAPE values reaching well above 1,000 joules per kilogram in this region. So if any individual cells develop here in southern Mississippi, south central Mississippi, if they get going ahead of this line, they're going to produce tornadoes. I really think they are. You have such an incredible dynamic wind potential, wind energy with this setup that you're going to have the chance for tornadoes. You're going to have a chance for tornadoes just with this line anyways. But regardless, you're going to have damaging winds. It's going to be a bowing segment. We call these a quasi-linear convective system. That's the crazy fancy, not crazy, but the fancy weather term to this line. And it's basically a squall line associated with a cold front that moves through. This will move through Mississippi. So damaging winds with this line, you know, it can cause damage to mobile homes and, you know, just homes or just small buildings, things that aren't really fastened down as well as maybe other homes. You know, they have the chance to produce some strong and damaging winds. And we're starting to get into 7, 8 p.m. This line of storms is moving through even areas of Tennessee. You folks in Kentucky, you know, I'll back this up here. Memphis, you guys are going to get hit hard probably around maybe rush hour, you know, give or take an hour. This continues to move through. This line is intense and it has a ton of wind energy. And the thing is ahead of this line, you will have a lot of surface winds, meaning it's going to be windy ahead of the line. I'm talking about 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, just a non-thunderstorm wind gust just ahead of this line. This continues to move through. I have some grandparents that live down here in southwest Alabama. So, you know, I even have relatives down there. So just be careful if you're anywhere in Alabama, because this starts to move through in the late evening after the sun goes down. These storms will move through, but you notice once you lose the daytime heating, maybe the intensity of the lines begin to weaken, but it's still going to be rocky weather. And the thing that's unfortunate for you folks in Alabama is I think a lot of this is going to move through after the sun goes down. So this will continue to move through. I think, and this is as far out as the NAM goes, the line will begin to lose some organization to it just due to the fact that it's starting to get into the overnight hours. So I think you could get some intense storms in North Georgia overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. But how much does this hold together? And that is a big question here. And I think they refire up here in the Mid-Atlantic. But there's not a lot to talk about. My folks in the Carolinas, I know I'm in the Carolinas. I know a lot of viewers in the Carolinas. I do think it's going to be some stormy weather overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday. Severe outbreak of nasty storms, I don't see it, just due to the fact that this energy moves through for an unfavorable time period for severe weather to occur in the Carolinas and a lot of Georgia, and maybe even areas of western Virginia. But you look at this wind energy, this wind field. This is a low-level jet pushing along this line and just ahead of it. These are winds probably 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet up in the air. So about about a mile above our heads. And this is the line right here, the line of storms. You notice how it abruptly changes colors and just a more stable atmosphere rides behind this line. But ahead of this, These winds are going to mix to the surface. So you have winds pushing 70, 80, 90 miles, well, 70 to 89, 70 to 80 miles per hour, about a mile above people's heads here in Louisiana, Mississippi, and even Alabama. But these will mix to the surface to the point where you have 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts even before the storm moves through. Now, with this line of storms, you could have much higher wind gusts. So this is going to be dangerous. Now, I know I'm not mentioning tornadoes much, but stick with me. I'm going to mention what I'm thinking about tornadoes here in a second. But this will continue to move through. Big time wind energy with this storm moves through. I know this looks really scary, but it's just bright colors, but it's a lot of wind energy. Just look at this. Look at it as that. So we're going to look at surface winds. So these are potential wind gusts from the latest NAM. Moving forward here, this is the line of storms right here. Look ahead, a few hundred miles ahead of this line of storms. So you're getting into the early afternoon hours, mid-afternoon hours in Mississippi. Before the line even moves in, you have potential wind gusts reaching 40 to 50 miles per hour. The line moves through, and then you have, depending on what location you are, disoriented to the nastiest part of the storms, really just depends on how strong your winds are. But embedded tornadoes with this, there's going to be some crazy winds going on with this, screaming out the south. And it is just going to be a rocky evening and night for Mississippi and Alabama, and then getting in the middle of Tennessee. Even you folks in Kentucky and Tennessee, you guys are going to be very gusty Wednesday night into the overnight hours. And there's going to be a big-time wind field that moves through the mountains of Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia. A lot of wind showing up in Ohio as you're getting into the overnight hours of Wednesday night to Thursday morning. So a lot of wind regardless if you see severe weather or not. And this is what I'm concerned about, okay? And I think tomorrow is going to be a big, big day to see how bad Wednesday is going to be. As we're getting into Wednesday, we're getting into time, how much CAPE develops here. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter how much CAPE builds if these storms do not develop. But what I'm showing you this for is down here in this sector where you have some high-end CAPE for this environment. CAPE pushing close to 1,000 joules per kilogram or higher on average. In this little sector down here, if anything develops down here with such a strong mid-level jet and low-level jet, putting a turning in the atmosphere with these convective layers down here, levels down here, and the dew points as high as they are, you're going to get tornadoes, especially in any prefrontal convection that develops down here. And you see this here. You look at the significant tornado parameter. That doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be tornadoes where you see these crazy bright or dark colors, whatever you want to call this, but it tells you the potential is there down here where those higher CAPE readings are for tornadoes. As you see right here, the CAPE levels are highest down here, and then the significant tornado parameter is pretty high in these southern sections of Mississippi. Watch out. And this even gets into Alabama. So you watch out for any nasty storms that develop in a broken line of storms that really moves through, or any individual supercells that get going before this line of storms. It can be dangerous for you folks in southern Mississippi, maybe even southern Alabama, and maybe even areas of southeast Louisiana for your Wednesday. So there's also a threat of storms still, slight risk up for these regions right here, but there's still a lot of questions. But I really think the biggest threat for you folks in the Delmarva, Virginia, North Carolina region, even this is including Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Virginia Beach, Raleigh, almost in Roanoke. I think the biggest threat for you folks is going to be damaging winds. But we'll see how this develops. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll have you an update tomorrow. And then really tomorrow night will be the calm before the storm Wednesday. We can really fully break down almost to a T, not to a T, but, with high confidence what is going to happen. But thank you all for tuning in. God bless all of y'all. Y'all have a great night, and I'll talk to you all in the morning.